Today is a new and joyful day, a day of celebration, of reunion, of old stories and new stories coming into deeper relationship.
Today is a day of Alleluia, and a deep exhale. Today is a day of survivors telling the stories of all they survived. Today is a day of communities welcoming back their survivors with deep joy and patient love. Today is a new and joyful day. And it is in this joyful morning light that we welcome back Reverend Karen, and her wife, Sue. Will you please come forward and light our chalice?
As we welcome them back to UUFNN, we welcome them to a joyful community that is telling new and old stories of who we are, who we were, and who we are becoming.
As we welcome them back to UUFNN, we welcome them in renewed relationship, not as minister or minister's wife, but as friends. But as friends and family of this community.
And so we light our chalice this morning, this Easter morning, as the first wave of spring blossoms dance in the wind, and we remember the stories we call sacred. We do so in the light of a community of joy. We do so in the light of a community of love. May all that we were, are, and will be together bless us this Easter morning. Amen. Blessed be, and namaste.
Good morning, everybody. Hello, my name is Booney Gorsicle. I'll be serving as your worship associate today. My pronouns are he, him, and his. Today, I'll be welcoming everyone here. If it's your first time, we welcome you. If this is your millionth time, we also welcome you. People via Zoom, we also welcome you. Here at UUFNN, we welcome people of all ages, races, ethnicities, cultures, and abilities, people of every gender identity and gender expression, people of every sexual orientation, people of every family structure, people of every faith or no faith background. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome here. As we gather today, we take pause to honor our ancestral lands, the homelands of the Numu, the Niue, and the Washoe people. We honor their enduring relationship with this land, the mountains, the waters, the desert, and we recognize the ongoing presence, resilience, and ongoing of the indigenous communities. May this acknowledgement call us not only to awareness, but to deeper respect, right relationship, and action. This month, our theme is Awakening Possibility. Together, we will explore what it means to open ourselves to new beginnings, to hope, and to the unfolding potential within and around us, even in uncertain times. May this time together help us awaken to what is possible in our lives, our community, and our world. We are grateful for you're here. And now, before we greet each other, I'll turn your attention to either behind your chairs for a joys and concerns card. It should look like this. If you have any joys or concerns you would like us to share, feel free to give them to either me or Nathan. But for now, I'll go ahead and let you all greet each other in whatever way is most comfortable for you, and I'll ring the singing bowl when it's time to regather.
Please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing 298 in the Gray hymnal, Wake Now My Senses.
Alrighty. Happy Easter, everyone. The readings for today are a mythical reimagining of the Easter story by the Irish theologian and poet, I'm going to try not to mispronounce their name, Pedrig O'Tuma, excerpted from his collection Kitchen Hymns. Pedrig imagines a dialogue between the Greek goddess of spring, Persephone, who descends to the underworld every winter and ascends to the world every spring, and Jesus of Nazareth, the Christian God whose story of death and resurrection rests at the heart of the Easter story. O'Tuma's dialogue reveals that stories of resurrection exist across culture. They speak to the spirit of human resilience and our capacity to survive hell and live to tell the story. So, as we share their conversation today, we invite you to listen for wisdom. The first story is In a Garden by a Gate. Once upon a time, a young god was sent to hell. She'd been violated, then blamed for her violation, which is a curse of time. Another curse of time was placed on her. Winters in the underworld, the rest of the year above. She was winter, she was spring. When she ascended, the world awoke. When she descended, it lamented. She left, she returned. 1 year, 50, 500, forever, powerful, and powerless she was. A different time, a different God, a different violation. He went to hell as well. Nobody knows if he was there for a minute or a year. Nobody helped. He sang songs to pass the time. He stopped believing in what he used to believe in, himself included. He licked water from the walls to satisfy his thirst. He saw hares. They seemed to know where they were going. He followed. He found what he hoped was a way out, a long tunnel. He dragged himself along. He heard someone ahead of him. He couldn't catch up. She didn't look back. Eventually, he felt a breeze. There was the smell of rain in the air. He forgot time, but kept crawling. Then he saw a gate. Small and heavy, the woman was standing on the other side of it, still facing away. He crawled out and into a garden in early morning light. He collapsed on the grass. The dew was wet his lips where he lay. I heard you behind me, she said. I wondered who you were. Why didn't you turn back? He asked. It doesn't work like that, she said. How did you find the way? What way? He asked. To the gate, she said. To the garden.
Please rise and body your spirit and join us in singing 1029 in the Teal hymnal. Love knocks and waits for us to hear.
As we enter into our time for prayer and meditation, I want to invite you to resettle yourself into your chair. Place your feet firmly on the ground or place your back firm against the top of your chair. You may feel called in this moment to close your eyes or soften your gaze or look out the windows. Take this moment to breathe. As we gather this morning, we gather in joy of welcoming old friends back. We gather in the joy of introducing old friends to new friends. We gather in joy knowing that we each carry sorrow in our hearts. We gather alongside Richard Dalt. All that you've been through, she asked. I'm not sure, he said. Do you? Not like I used to, she replied. I grew up thinking God was light. Then I went to where there was no light. I used to think God made all things new, but I've been wandering a while now. Nothing is new. Everything's a lens through which another everything can be viewed. And that screws you up and releases you. I look at dawn now and love the turning, the way that morning is both dead and new. How about you? I like walking alone at twilight, he said. I like the in-between. She held his gaze and asked, is that your answer? It's all I've got, he said. It's all I've got. Amen, blessed be, and namaste.
When people ask you, where have you been? What do you say? He said. I say I've been to hell and back, she said. And they say, Christ, me too. Then they tell me about their pains, and they expect me to be shocked, so they offer reassurance, say not to worry, not to fret, nothing that a burger and a bottle can't improve. Sometimes they might ask if I'm okay after everything they've shared with me. I smile and tell them I'm okay. Then they feel okay. They change the subject. They pick up their phones and carry on. But you, he said, what do you say? What story do you tell yourself about what happened? You're new to this, she said. You'll tell it one way to yourself today. Then you'll find the story needs to change. Some days, that's fine. Sometimes you'll feel you're back again, can't escape. Then spring, then summer, autumn, winter, spring again. Time's not a line.
Over the weekend, I rewatched one of my favorite films from 2025, Knives Out, Wake Up Dead Man. For those unfamiliar, it is an Agatha Christie-style murder mystery film about a zealous, arrogant Catholic priest in a small upstate New York town who is the victim of an impossible murder and is caught on security footage breaking down the door of his own tomb, leading to a smorgasbord of questions and conspiracies. All the while, his young, passionate, progressive associate pastor is framed for his murder and spends the film trying to prove his innocence with the help of a detective. Now, I won't spoil the movie, but the reason it has cemented itself as one of my favorites is because of an exchange between the young priest, Father Judd, and the detective, Benoit Blanc. Blanc actually reminds me a lot of many members of our congregation. Benoit Blanc is unapologetically queer, unapologetically an atheist, unapologetically rational, and he goes on this rant to the priest about how he cannot believe in a fairy tale that is nothing but storytelling, and that it is a story that has only ever perpetuated violence and harm in the world. And the priest listens to the rant with smiling eyes. He says, "You're right. It is storytelling. This church isn't medieval. We're in the middle of New York. It has more in common with Disneyland than Notre Dame. And the rites, the rituals, the costumes, all of it. You're right. It's storytelling." I guess the question is, though, do these stories convince us of a lie? Or do they resonate with something deep inside us that is profoundly true, that we can't express any other way other than storytelling? Oftentimes, when people ask me to describe what it's like to be a religious professional, I say it is 1 part therapist, 1 part social worker, 1 part nonprofit executive director, and 1 part cruise line director. But what I don't always say is that it is always the role of storyteller. Or at least, for someone, it is at least someone who takes seriously the stories of our world. It is no wonder I love this movie. So when we stumble into a day like Easter, and I do mean stumble, we stumble into a story that carries a lot. For some of us here, we grew up in Christian traditions where the story of Easter harkens to memories of melancholic prayer services in the dark and observances that take seriously the death and the resurrection. For some of us here, that story is a symbol of fighting against oppression and resisting tyranny. For others, it is a story of Christian triumph about how Jesus conquered death and therefore Christians have the right to conquer the world. For those of us of earth-centered or pagan persuasions, our Easter story centers on the welcoming of spring, be it through Persephone or someone in a whole array of springtime deities and spirits across traditions. And with the return of spring comes the return of Facebook debates about the origin of the Easter Bunny. And why do we decorate Easter eggs? And the pagan truth behind all of it. And still, for those of us who grew up non-Christians, non-pagans in a Christocentric culture, Easter is a capitalist kaleidoscope of pastels and chocolate bunnies and plastic eggs. Another holiday that makes little sense with strange traditions we feel obligated to participate in. But every year, we are given the opportunity to center a story. Do we center the stories that we fear will convince us of a lie? Or do we center the stories that resonate with something deep inside us that is profoundly true? Something so profound it can only be expressed by storytelling. That mystery of something deep inside the human spirit must be why so many cultures have stories of resurrection. To imagine a world where someone comes back from the dead, a return from the underworld. It is a tale as old as time. And as Padraig told us this morning, time is not a line. So we turned to stories of resurrection in part because they are fulfilling, they're dramatic, they're fun. Oftentimes they're told through the lens of triumph. Jesus sent an earthquake to roll away the stone after he punched the devil in the face. Bright lights and lightning appeared to scare off the guards. Persephone returns each spring through a cacophony of colors, of spring flowers, of fruitful tree blossoms. We grow comfortable in telling a story that is easy to digest, that has a clear, happy ending, even if it's an ending that we don't agree with. But to sit with resurrection stories, to take the stories seriously, when we do that, the theatrics all fade away. That's what I loved about Padraig's retellings. There's no triumph, there's no stone, there's not even really any of the original myth present in the story. It's a dialogue between two hurt people. We forget on Easter that Jesus resurrected still wounded, still actively bleeding, his body broken and bruised from a state-sanctioned crucifixion. And this isn't a short-term thing. He doesn't wake up tomorrow, wounds be gone. In fact, a week after the resurrection, Jesus walks through the wall of a locked room into a room of all his friends and says, "Hey, touch my wounds. Stick your hand in my side." When Thomas does that, I always wonder if they both wince at the pain. What does it mean that Jesus resurrected wounded? When the triumphant narrative tells us he came back stronger than ever. I understand why Padraig's Jesus stopped believing in what he used to believe, himself included. There is no perfect resurrection story, especially when you slow down to ponder them. Persephone, before being abducted and assaulted by Hades and stolen to the underworld, was originally named Kore, the Greek word for maiden. Upon eating the pomegranate seed and being bound to Hades in perpetuity, Kore's name is changed to Persephone, which means death bringer in Greek. She becomes the queen of the underworld. Persephone's story is a coming-of-age tale about being stripped of agency and coming into unanticipated paradoxes of power and powerlessness. What does it mean that when the plum blossoms bloom in my backyard and I greet Persephone, I am greeting the bringer of death, as well as the return of spring? When new life and the arriving of death occur at the same moment, in the same person, and speak with the same voice. Storytelling is our tabernacle for mystery. That tool of human creation that we place the sacred profundity of the human experience in so that we may reflect and be transformed by it. It's not about whether these things actually happened. It's about the truth at the heart of the tale. But what do you say? What story do you tell yourself about what happened? When you don't grab the silver lining, when you don't bypass the pain for a happy ending, what happens when resurrection isn't a holiday? The day I decided I would not be a Catholic priest, it was a Sunday, 15 days after my 20th birthday. Washington State was getting ready to vote for marriage equality. It was 2012. I had been outed to church leadership the summer before. Our campus minister told me I still belonged, but I was unfit to lead. My peers told me they loved me, but I shouldn't be allowed to speak at retreats. People like me weren't allowed to speak on matters of faith, I was told. I thought I could change their minds. I was wrong. That Sunday, the Archbishop of Seattle invited all parishes to place a petition against same-sex marriage in the backs of their churches. And my parish at the time complied. So already bruised and pained by being outed, I sat and watched people I once called friends sign their names. I watched them, one right after another, pen scraping paper. They greeted another around the petition. They laughed, smiled, and refused to make eye contact with me. I sat next to my friend Agnes. She held my hand. I cried, loud. Father Quitak, a quiet priest on his way out to become a monk, gave a homily on how as Catholics we are called to be mindful to the wounds of others, how that awareness should guide our actions as we live out our faith. It was the second Sunday of Easter. He was preaching from the Gospel of John, chapter 20, verses 24 through 28, to be specific, and I had heard this reading before. I had just referenced it. It was the story of Thomas, commonly known as Doubting Thomas. These four verses tell the story of wounds resurrected, the invitation to touch the pain of another person, to understand the reality of the world. A story of longing to touch the places of pain to find the hope of faith. And as this priest spoke, I sobbed. I tried to maintain eye contact with him the whole homily, praying he would see my pain, praying he would be Thomas and place his hand in the wound of my heart, hoping he would call out the petition, the hypocrisy, the homophobia, the injustice, receiving instead the silence and his eyes shifting as not to see me. I had panic attacks in Mass for the next 3 years. And if someone asked me right then and there if I believed in God, I would have said, hell no. I was experiencing firsthand the story as told by Benoit Blanc. The rejection, the isolation, the violence. God was light, and then I went to where there was no light. I used to try and clean this story up, tell the Easter version, talk about how that was a catalyst for my journey to seminary, talk about how it actually empowered me, talk about how, though it was painful, I got over it, talked about how I was fine. I tried to convince myself that the pain was worth something, a very Catholic thing to do, when all I did was survive. And I survived with wounds I never really learned how to tend at that age of 20. But through a lot of therapy, I started writing this story down for real. And I learned when we talk about stories, stories rest in our bodies. When I told this story before and told the real story, it would get caught in my throat. I would quiver, I would cry, it would tighten my chest. Right now, the story is resting in my elbows. It tingles my fingertips. And last night, as I was editing this sermon and I got to this part, I heard Padraig's Persephone's words, "You tell it one way to yourself today. Then you find the story needs to change. Some days that's fine. Sometimes you'll feel you're back again, can't escape, then spring, then summer, autumn, winter, spring again. Stories of resurrection change." I do think that I needed those stories, those retellings of triumph for what they offered me in moments when I didn't know how to sit in my body, in the pain. But these days, I like the in-between. I like walking alone at twilight. But what helps us realize that a story is changing and a story is different is that these stories of survival are done in the context of communities of joy that surround them. When Jesus resurrects bloody and broken, he is welcomed back first by women, welcomed back rejoicing at his survival. When Persephone returns for her first spring, her mother Demeter is overjoyed at the return of her daughter. When I left the Catholic Church, I was welcomed into a community of queer and trans anarchist poets and activists who have shaped my answer to my call as being a lay religious leader far more than the Catholic Church ever did. And that is the paradox of an imperfect resurrection. For those who are returning, they are coming back changed, coming back with a story they cannot tell perfectly. The joy of the community welcoming them can at first feel strange, to be broken and met with, "I'm so glad you survived," when you're still surviving is a weird tension in the body. But if the community and the joy maintains presence and witness without jumping to fix the wounds and strip a survivor of agency, healing can occur. Demeter never asks Persephone to change her name back to Kore. Persephone is still the bringer of death, even in her resurrection. Jesus' disciples witness and touch the wounds, but never jump to problem-solving mode. They don't even offer a bandage. The community that welcomed me when I lost my sense of calling never asked me to sanitize my story for them. A perfect resurrection would mean that we come back and there is no discomfort. We resurrect happy and whole and smiling in a smiling world. That's not the world we live in. And as we covenant through collapse this year, we are asking ourselves as a community hard questions of what it means to be a community of faith in the face of fascism and climate disaster. Many of us are grieving institutions, and I know we are all praying that they will resurrect perfectly after this moment of history is over. But there are no perfect resurrections. And that is good news. We are continuing to witness the ways our systems, institutions, and our country was and is wounded and wounding. We are witnessing the stories changing and the practices of tending and attention shifting. There is a version of this sermon where I promise a triumphant, resurrected, liberated world, where I break out my silver Sharpie and I write all my hopes and aspirations on the outline of the storm clouds of reality, where I say things like, "Spring returns and so does democracy." And if that is the sermon you needed to hear this morning, I offer you that sentence, because that's all I got. Because there are no perfect resurrections. And I do believe in a liberated future and that spring returns, but this year, our spring is arriving with less water, less snowmelt, more caution for a future of summer fires, and concern for a land where data centers are being built and threatening to steal our water. And that is disheartening. And it is also invitational, as we've been learning over the past few months. Do we tell a lie of uninformed optimism for our own comfort? Or do we tell the honest truth, knowing it makes us uncomfortable, while also preparing us to fight climate change with community and joy? Last night, I had the opportunity to hear Roxane Gay, a feminist cultural critic and writer, speak at UNR. She spoke of the moment we're in as a moment where stories and art matter more than ever before, because those in power are trying to control art. The loss of the Kennedy Center, the loss of the endowment for the arts, the defunding of artists in this world. When the government strips art funding away, they're indirectly telling artists not to tell stories, not to be loud. And in response, Roxane Gay says, I will be making art every damn day, thank you very much. When the story of Easter is going to be co-opted today by communities around the US in order to celebrate war, the Pope tells a story about a Jesus who survived war wounded and says God does not hear the prayers of those who wage war. That is a direct quote, y'all, from the Pope. There is no perfect resurrection. We are simultaneously always the one resurrecting and part of the community welcoming the resurrected into our arms. This is a day of joy, but it is a day that centers the joy of communities that learned to hold the resurrected, wholly wounded. This is a day that invites us to choose a story that resonates with the profound mystery of life, not because whether or not it happened, but because storytelling matters. Storytelling is a sacred act that holds the wisdom of what tethers us all together and reminds us that stories are sites of pain in need of healing. They are tabernacles of wisdom. Stories of life that call us on. And in conclusion, I feel Padraig's Persephone asking, so is that your answer? It's all I've got. Amen, blessed be, and may it be so.
Words and deeds of those before us waken here to keep us strong. Blend our voices in the chorus of creation's living song. Courage bids us lift our eyes upward to the shining skies. Hope calls us on. Hope calls us on.
Loyal guides in love and duty, leads us on the trusted light. Blessed are they whose inward beauty shows the path of truth and light. Honor is their stealthy pride. By their work we realize faith calls us
Truth has made us free, and the Spirit's of precious power, dreamed of good that yet shall be. Right the path before us lies. Joyful pilgrims, now we rise. Life calls us on. 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 Life calls us on.
Alrighty. It is now time to share in our bounty with our Share the Plate recipient. Every month, we find a local nonprofit to share our bounty with. This month's local nonprofit is Parkinson's Support Center of Northern Nevada, and Dr. Mindy Loshkin is here to share a little bit more about her organization.
A little vertically challenged here, but that's okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I'm truly grateful to be part of this community today, and especially honored that the Parkinson's Support Center of Northern Nevada is your Pass the Plate recipient this month. As I was introduced, I am Dr. Mindy Lokshin. I am a family physician, no longer practicing, with multiple family members and friends with Parkinson's disease, as I'm sure many of this community also share. We are a 501c3 nonprofit with the mission to ensure that no one has to face Parkinson's disease alone. Parkinson's disease is the fastest growing neurodegenerative disease in the world, and we estimate there are over 5,000 people living with the disease in Northern Nevada, and it affects not just those people, but their families and their communities. Parkinson's disease is more than a tremor, and our slogan for April as Parkinson's Disease Awareness Month is "See the person, not the tremor." Parkinson's disease affects movement, balance, speech, sleep, mood, cognition, and so many other things. It impacts the individual and families and communities, and that's where our organization comes in. We provide support programs, educational presentations, one-on-one mentoring, and resources for people to navigate their life with Parkinson's disease as well as possible. We work to build community because connection is as important as medical care. As I said, April is Parkinson's Disease Awareness Month, and throughout this month, we're focused on helping people better understand the disease and the people living with it. One of the most powerful things we emphasize is building that community. We have partnered with some local gyms. Exercise is critical for living with Parkinson's. We have partnered with multiple restaurants locally where you can come on out and dine to donate, and that information's on our website. We're also having a awareness day, which International Parkinson's Disease Awareness Day is April 11th, but we couldn't get things organized for that. So April 18th, we have what we call our education series, where we are going to be having a special presentation on how to advocate for yourself in the healthcare system, how to advocate for yourself with your Parkinson's in the community, and how to advocate on the state and federal level. That's April 18th, and registration's required because space is limited, but all our programs are free. And what we've seen time and again is that when people are informed, supported, and connected, they do better. They feel stronger, and they realize they're not alone. So your support through the Share the Plate helps make us all this possible. It allows us to expand our programs, reach more people, and continue building the community right here in Northern Nevada. So thank you for your generosity and compassion and allowing me to present today.
All right. Okay. Please give what you are able and willing to. And our options for Share the Plate will be either behind me and a basket will be passed around. Let the offering begin. Okay, please join Jackie and I as we bless our offerings. To the work of this fellowship, which is offering more people grow in love, faith, justice, and joy, we dedicate ourselves, and these are offerings. Thank you. Lastly, we have some invitations, and I'll invite Philip Moore to talk more about some stewardship updates.
Good morning. My name is Philip Moore, and I'm here today as your stewardship chair, and my personal pronouns are he and him. I'll never forget that. It's to you, Kira. So I'm here to tell you about the final result, and I want to say that I'm just incredibly awed by the generosity of this fellowship. Our goal this year was $390,000, and we made it to $375,000, despite many of the headwinds that we discussed during our cottage meetings. So as my friend Pete said, despite that somewhat disappointing results, it's remarkable given where we're going. So I want to spend a minute thanking people again for this. First of all, to each and every one of you for your generosity. Second, to Lois and Dave again for all the efforts that they did to put together the cottage meetings, which were fantastic. And next to the hosts for those 18 different cottage meetings. And I don't know if Marcy's on Zoom. I hope she is, Marcy Edelman. But she and her follow-up team did an outstanding job of making sure people got engaged with this campaign. So thank you to her, and look forward to her playing a major role going forward. Right, Marcy? And last but not least, I want to thank Nathan and Kristen, who were instrumental in making this a truly innovative annual budget drive. So where do we go from here? Well, that number I mentioned, 375,000, goes to our very qualified finance team to figure out how we're going to budget for next year, with the priority to make sure that our beloved Reverend Kristen Famila is full-time. So thank you all again.
Thank you, Philip. We have a couple invitations of all the fun things happening around UUFNN. Sunday, April 5th, I think that's today actually, 11:45 a.m. in the Maynard Room. All beliefs welcome. A chosen faith, number 1. Newcomers, visitors, anyone with any interest, you are invited to attend a chosen faith, 1. Our beliefs, Sunday, April 5th, after the service today. This interactive session introduces you to the many, many beliefs found within Unitarian Universalism and helps you understand how so many different beliefs can fit into one religion. Christine and Jackie look forward to meeting you, and yes, there will be snacks. Look for them in the Maynard Room in our education building. Mimics movie at UUFNN. This will be April 11th at 7 p.m. in the Great Room. $10 are suggested donations. It's a date night. Enjoy the UUFNN premiere of the UUFNN Mimics, or of the movies, Mimics. Mimics is a creepy little love story set and filmed in Reno. You'll recognize many familiar locations. Mark Oakley, who wrote the screenplay, will be present to discuss his journey of working with local Christopher Polaha, who directed and starred in this movie. Chris has starred in over 20 other movies, many Hallmark. Mark and Chris were elementary schoolmates in Reno and reconnected to write and produce this movie. It's a great, fun, scary romp of a movie. One reviewer posted, a wickedly funny, wildly entertaining, and effectively creepy horror comedy. Bring your friends. Drinks and snacks are provided. And then lastly, the Kintsugi workshop, which will be happening April 11th from 1 to 3 p.m. in the UUFNN Great Room. Feel the need to mend something broken, like your attitude, concerns about day-to-day events. Join Marcy Edelman and Julie Sulaharia to hands-on mend a broken item, thereby metaphorically renewing your spirit. Kintsugi gold mica dust will glue ceramic, wood, china pieces back together again. Come Saturday, April 11th, 1 to 3 p.m. in the Great Room. Supplies will be furnished. Registration fee is $30.
Please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing 299 in the Gray Hymnal. Make channels for the streams of love.
I invite you now to join hands with the community around you, and if you'd rather refrain from holding hands. I invite you to place your hand softly on your heart. We gathered this morning as a community of love and a community of joy in the welcoming, the resurrection of spring and story. As we part, may we carry that light, that wisdom, that love in the stories we tell this week, this month, this year, as we do the hard work of speaking truth to power. Our worship has ended. Our service is beginning. Go in peace and love this Easter morn. Amen. Blessed be, and namaste.